everybody. Welcome to the L-5 podcast. We are back with another episode. Tonight, we are reviewing another full feature film called Identity. This was Stacy's pick.
Yay! Hello.
So, Stacy, would you like to lead the conversation about Identity?
Sure, I will. Did everybody there 17 minutes or no?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for me, it was my suggestion to do Identity because no one had seen it, and I was trying to find some people who actually seen the movie. And the first 17 minutes, you get the basic the cast of characters, what's going to happen, kind of a thing. You get an understanding of what's going to happen in the film, and you not sure quite, at least I wasn't sure when the first 17 minutes, what kind of film was it going to be? Was it going to be a mystery? Was it going to be a thriller? Was it going to be a horror? Was it going to be drama? I mean, there's a lot of characters when you first see the first 17 minutes. And because of the different characters there has, you don't really know where it's going to go to at first. And that kept me interested. So the first 17 minutes was just really an introduction to pretty much everybody's going to be in the movie. And it's one of those movies where you're only really in about two places the whole entire movie. So not a whole lot of going to different sites or locations. And for me, I wanted to keep seeing it. So after the first 17 minutes, I wanted to continue to see it and find out what is this movie about, because there are some surprises as you keep watching the movie. And so how did y'all feel about just the first 17 minutes? For me, it was definitely, I guess, a 3 out of 5 or a 4, just because I wanted to see what was going on. I did want to see it and continue to see it.
So I'll read my notes. So I love me some John Cusack. Especially in a dark movie. I think I want to say he's underrated, but I don't know if that's the right word. But I really like him in these types of movies. The movie kind of had, I said, a Final Destination or a Death Proof Drive kind of vibes. And those Quentin Tarantino kind of, I don't know if anybody saw it, like Death Proof or anything. I don't know why. I think it was the highway, the dark highway, and the girl driving the car and stuff. That just kind of reminded me of that. And then I also felt a little El Royale, but obviously that's because of the hotel. I love the actors, although there's not much diversity. I said, I wonder if this is going to play into what's going on here. I said, it's a great cast. I'm excited to see more. And it's definitely a movie that you have to pay attention to, because I was trying to do something else and I couldn't do something else at the same time. I really had to just sit there and watch it. And at this point, so I've changed my rating system a little bit, because I just cling to a 3 like nobody's business, usually at the 17 minutes. So what I'm now doing is I give it a 2 if I don't want to see it anymore, but I'll still watch it. I'll give it a 4 if I definitely want to still watch it. And I'll give it a 3 only if I don't care either way. So for me, I'm going to give this a 4 at the 17 minutes.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
So I was at a 4 also at 17 minutes. So so here's what I was writing. Identity. Didn't you used to be that actress? Who am I talking to? Is she a hooker? Who are you? All of those are lines that were said at the first 17 minutes, and it's all about identity. Who are you? And so we're setting up the scene, and after introducing us to the story about a man on death row, and we start meeting everyone else, and it's everyone's worst day ever. Everybody's having a terrible day. It's horrible. And then he pulls up, and there's really interesting action in the editing with flipping back and forward. There's really interesting editing techniques there. So it's a very cool style. I love that. So I was really hooked in the beginning of this. and I was reading a little bit more about it, that this was kind of Agatha Christie-esque. Christie. So it wasn't actually fully based on the strangers. Crap. What is it? The 10 strangers meet. I thought I wrote it down, but I didn't write it down.
Is that the Orient Train?
It's kind of like a lot of the Agatha Christie novels, where you set up all these characters and then everybody's dying and getting picked off, just like on the train. And I want to say, and then there's none, but there's also a play that
There's 10 Little Indians.
10 Little Indians, yeah. I thought that's what this was going to be based on, but anyway, that was my first impression. I gave it a 4.2.
I can go. I'm overwhelmed. Oh my Lord. And I put if that was John Cusack, I agree with Dane. I think he's a great actor. But I put, if that was a brother who, the wife, spoiler alert, the wife got hit, I said hands would have been thrown. Because I said, Lord, like, he was just so calm and, help me. And I'm just like, no, I'm throwing hands. Like, you just came and hit my, so I felt like that was just so interesting. In the first, I think it was like 7 or 8 minutes is when the accident happened. And then everything, like Brian's saying, just kind of went downhill for everybody. I was overwhelmed with that. I think after that point, I was like, what are we getting into? Who's what? I did like the editing as well. I think it was pretty different because most movies don't do that type of editing until like after 17. So they kind of jump right into it. And then they had like the intro was sort of like creepy. And the intro also, I was like, is this a mystery or a thriller? Because I remember when Stacy posed the movie, I looked it up, it said mystery/thriller. So I was like, what's the identity of this movie identity? Is it a thriller? Is it going to be more of a mystery? You solve the mystery and you come up with your own conclusion. Is it one of those like movies that you piece together certain things in the timeline? Is it linear, or is it kind of things are jumping all over the place? So I gave it a 3.5. It was pretty cool to me. I didn't have any issues, but I was overwhelmed when I was like, oh, she got hit, and I almost swallowed my pizza. I said, oh my God. Like, and we were in the Discord, and I was like, I think that's when Brian was like, everyone's having a bad day. I was like, yeah. I think we've covered the gamut of bad days. Like, I honestly, I was like, she dead, she ain't alive. But again, we'll talk about that later. So 3.5.
Yeah, I'm kind of in agreement with a lot of the comments here that everybody's saying. I really thought it was interesting. I liked the connect the dots, kind of method that they were doing in the beginning, as you've seen in some of the other films. It was interesting to me because I wanted to see immediately with the production and what was going on. I wanted to see like a behind the scenes of like how they actually made this film with all the water and everything that was going on, how rainy it was, just torrential downpour. And it just like never stopped. And I'm just like, who got a cold? Who got
it was so wet. It was like wettest movie ever, right?
Yeah, it's like wettest movie ever. Exactly. It can only be like Waterworld or like, some other film like Heavy Rain or something that was, as much as this. But no,
and it was real.
What's that?
Real water. It wasn't like that Star Wars Episode 2 water.
Oh yeah, no, not like that at all. But I like the acting and everything that was connected here. It was interesting to me also about like, I was trying to piece what year this actually took place, because nobody had like cell phones and stuff like that. And they were trying to find a way to call somebody and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, just imagine like back, in those days when we didn't have cell phones and you have an emergency on something like that. And I also liked the tone of the film where you just knew that this was going to be rated R with the way that things were happening, so it's like they give you everything that you need in that first 17 minutes to get the feel of what's happening in this movie. And I was a lot like Dana, where it's like you can't take your eyes off the screen or any of the dialogue of what's going on because everything kind of connects. So I really was enjoying it in the first 17 minutes. I say give it about a 3. I was probably like right at a 3.
Okay.
And about the cell phone thing, the woman had a cell phone, but to
Yeah.
your point, it seemed to be something that not everybody had,
Right.
kind of more like maybe only people with money or something,
Well, it was in 2003. So
Yeah.
at that time, it wasn't smart. There wasn't really smartphones. Because I think, no, I don't think there was there in 2003? I don't think it was just regular cell phone.
It's
Yeah, they were
regular,
just
yeah.
coming out.
Yeah. So it was just, if you had a phone, and I think probably people did have a phone, but that group of people that they were showing, except for maybe the actress or somebody or
Yeah.
John Cusack's character would have it. I don't think everybody would necessarily have a phone or think it's a requirement when you do a long road trip.
Mhm.
But there were definitely no smartphones in it. So it was just your regular cell phone, and hopefully you hit that tower, and it's like they're missing. She hit the last cell phone tower, and that would be it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that makes a big difference now.
Yeah.
It really does.
I was just thinking about the spoilers already in that about
Oh.
the phones and everything, but I was like, oh yeah,
Okay, spoiler alert. No.
No,
Yeah.
seriously, spoiler alert. Okay, now we're getting into it.
Well, we can.
Warning, 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 warning.
There's only one phone.
One cell phone. Now, what I really liked, because when we first talked about it, we first start off, they're talking about the murderer, and that they're having this last minute talk with, about getting him off of death row, I guess, and everything. And you think, okay, he's being transported, because they mentioned he has to be transported to whatever. And so you think that's the person you're going to see. So when all the cast of characters come in and you see everybody's backstory, you see the actress that used to be an actress, but did you used to be an actress? Her chauffeur. Then you see the family, the mom, the dad or stepdad, and the kid. And you see the prostitute, which everybody seems to know is a prostitute immediately by seeing her, which I never got, but
Me either.
and then you see the guy who is running the motel, and let's see, who else did I miss? Anybody? Girlfriend, the douchebag. I don't really know. Then they come up, so it was just, you got to see pretty much everybody to begin with when that first 17 minutes. And when they finally sees a police car pull up, and you see the cop, and then you see the person they're pulling in, it's like, that wasn't the guy in that last scene.
Yeah.
They said they were that he's gonna be. It's like, that's not even the guy. Who is he?
Yeah.
And what's going on? And that kind of sets the whole pace to me for the rest of the movie. It's like, so what's going on? Until much later when you do figure it out. But I mean, I really, really enjoyed this. I'm glad hopefully, y'all enjoyed the end too. But anybody else with what they saw in the movie so far?
So I'll jump in. So we had this cast of characters, like you said, and initially it does start off and gets us thinking that maybe this person being transported is being transported by the cop who shows up at the hotel. But when they got there, I immediately thought, oh, no, that's not him. Because in my mind, I'm like, somebody who's done all this is not being escorted by one cop in a Crown Victoria. I don't know what it was. But,
It was.
that's not enough security. And granted, at this time, I didn't realize how old it was. I think I may have known the movie was old, but I had some questions later on about the time period this movie took place in. But at that point, and then I wasn't really thinking about that. I just thought, this definitely isn't them. But I don't think that's what they wanted you to think at that point. I think they wanted you to think otherwise. And I don't know if it's different, just we know more now or what, but the expectation would definitely not be one cop in a car with somebody who's killed all these people. When I start questioning the time was when John's character pulled out his camera. Again, talking about not having smartphones, or you didn't even have to have a smartphone, not having a phone with a camera on it, because that even predated smartphones. he pulled out a camera you have to go and get developed. I mean, so that actually led me to believe that I wasn't even sure that this was 20. I mean, what did you say? 2003?
2003. Yeah.
Like,
Could have been 90s,
I was
early
like,
90s.
what time is this really supposed to be taking place? I honestly wasn't sure.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I started to question some of the stuff with time. So so I thought the movie was interesting. I liked the characters in it, but I think it made a turn for me when we realized that the deaths were not real. So at that point, I actually started figuring out kind of what was going on here. Because if this was really happening, cleaning it up and doing all that stuff would not have happened. There's no way, right? So I knew at that point this wasn't real anymore. And then my mind started saying what I thought it was. And Corey knows that I said who I thought it was and I was right. But I won't tell through all that. I'll let other people talk and then just chime in.
Well, I mean, you do realize, okay, it's fake after a while, but it's at least it was 3 deaths in before you realize, okay, something's going on.
Mm-hmm.
It was like the first death was the actress. And so when she was going out with that phone, I was like, okay, this has to be
right.
I'm going, how far away from the hotel am I going to try to get this 1 or 2 bars by myself? That's why I have a chauffeur. I don't do those kind of things. I would
with
be
the shower current like
with a couch. And then
I
goes
wouldn't
out.
even done that knowing they weren't killing people. Like at this point, she didn't know there was real danger, right? Other than generic
but it's
danger.
still going out to
I
the
still
desert.
wouldn't have done it.
It's going out to the desert. Really? I'm going to go that far out the desert to get, because she was really that far out. It's like, no, I'm going to have to call my chauffeur and say, hey, I think I got a bar here. And that's as far as I go. And then, of course, she dies suddenly with all the blood and stuff. And then what happens next?
What's the side next?
Who happens next? I think it was
was it the guy?
John.
Was it?
It was the boyfriend.
Yeah, the boyfriend. Yeah.
The boyfriend. Yeah, that was a really good scene. The girlfriend is in the bathroom, hearing everything else on the other side of the door.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really good and suspenseful.
And he wasn't even the boyfriend; he was the husband, actually.
Yeah.
Right.
Right?
No, was it? I was talking about
They were
the
newlyweds.
boyfriend.
They were newlyweds, and he
Yeah,
thought she
they
had
were
a
newlyweds because
baby.
he thought she was pregnant.
Pregnant, right?
Which I was like, yeah, that always brings you together. That keeps
Right?
Yeah, I
Great
know.
idea.
That's the
Yeah.
best way to start a family.
He
Yeah.
said, but you showed me the test. I
It's like, Maury, you are not the
said, you
father.
are not the father, right?
So you can tell
we
it
on Maury?
because you could have gone somewhere and gotten that anywhere.
Correct.
But yeah, it's like first you like. I was thinking, why you want to be with him? Because as soon as they get into as soon as they pick up that the other lady, the prostitute, the sex worker. I'm not really sure what's the term I need to use, but he was like making eyes at her already, and I'm just saying, and I don't know, that's a whole little thing about why would you want to be with him in the first place? But of course,
But see, I didn't get that either. I didn't get that he was making eyes to her. I didn't pick that up. That's so weird.
I didn't pay them any. I'll be honest. Those 2 characters did not need to be in the movie. I paid them no attention.
I didn't really pay him any attention either. But they were the first people besides the actress to get going. I mean, it was just when you see, and I recognize that character from at the time she played
Steve Harvey. That is Steve Harvey. That's what I told Corey. I said that's all I know about him.
Okay, no, and I was thinking about the girl she played in some of those teen movies or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I was like, maybe that's why they put them in it. I don't know. But when he was beating against the door, and he's like, okay, he's beating against the door, and then he started screaming for a different reason. Mm-hmm. And that whole thing of trying to close the door, that's like one of my my anxiety nightmares is something coming and I can't close the door. So that really is like, I don't really want to see this part of it. But she did end up closing the door and locking it with that little lock. I was like, we find out but who's on the other side? Because that little lock should not have
like, yes. It was going to hold nothing.
Yeah.
But answer me this, because you pointed out a good thing that I thought too. I felt like his scream changed, and that's when I was like, something's happening. But what he was saying and how he was doing it didn't, like, I felt like I would have been like, somebody's killing me. It would have changed from opening the door. Like, because that is not, that wasn't working then. And saying it again isn't going to help. You tell me why. Like, I think in my mind I would have been like, Chris is out here killing me, whatever. Of course, that would have ended the movie. But I think I definitely would have said at least, somebody's killing me, help me, help me, help me, or help me.
Well, I think one of the things is because now that we know who killed him, it was more like shock and awe. Like, wait a minute. I think, yes, you're screaming, but at the same time, maybe not believing what's happening because of who killed him, end up killing him.
Yeah.
I think after the first stab, though, like, consider who did it. Initially, you probably wouldn't have seen it coming at all, right? Like, no way. And then after the first time, yeah, and I'm gonna be honest. I mean, and this is another thing that we have to look at. These kills, for the most part, I think were also, considering who ultimately did it, were not really things I think would have been manageable for that person. So I think they were unrealistic in that way as well. But I think that wasn't the point of what they were trying to do, since this wasn't real. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, then after him, who was the third person? Was it
Was it the dad or the prisoner?
I thought it
was the prisoner. It was the prisoner.
With the baseball bat, right?
Yes, that was a gross scene.
The deaths were good.
That was good.
They were. I appreciated the variety.
Okay. The variety of deaths. I like that.
So
Go ahead.
Well, I'm just gonna jump over to the issue that the prisoner has dissociative disorder, used to be called multiple personality disorder, and there's another series, United States of Terror. Have you guys ever seen that?
I've seen I haven't watched the show.
It's been a long time.
I love her.
I love her, and I loved that series. But each character or each personality or entity never really interacted with each other. So this was really interesting that all of these different characters are interacting with each other and outright offing each other, which it never happens. And so my question, Dana, is when did you know that these weren't fake? Because I don't think I was putting it together until for a little while into it.
It was definitely a little while. Like, I knew the cop thing. I knew that was suspect right there. That was not as it appeared to be. But in terms of knowing that these weren't real, it's only when the cleanup started happening. So when we would go back to the places and the bodies were gone, and not only gone, because it could have been dragged off, right?
Yeah.
Nothing, no evidence.
Blood,
it's like
nothing.
This is.
I was like, okay, this is bull. This is so it was pretty deep into the movie.
Okay.
It wasn't like at the beginning.
So those were the clues. Yeah, me too. I was like, what is this? This is really dreamy more than reality. You've got to really suspend the disbelief there, and that made sense.
Did you ever think it was supernatural? Because the girl character who was talking about being on these lands, where they, I guess, put people on, and it was a drought and they died and all that kind of stuff or whatever. Did you go anywhere with her on that, or did you just see her as just blabbing on the side and not even really take? Because for 1 second I was like, well, now I really don't. I'm not sure, because the door closed by itself and everybody was together.
Yeah, and so
maybe is there a supernatural element going on here?
So were there clues in that first scene where we're hearing the tape from the doctor about the patient's disorder? Do we know?
Yes.
Yeah.
I felt like they were talking to somebody, because also his little poem or poem about
Ugh. Yeah.
not seeing,
Can I
but
write
I
that
don't
down?
remember what it was.
The man who wasn't there or something like that.
Yeah.
On the
Yeah.
stairs, who wasn't there.
Oh,
So
I
I
put it in the
think,
Discord. Keith.
Mm-hmm.
so I think there were like little hints. I'm trying to think what else.
He did mention about bringing the personalities together. I mean,
Yeah.
he does mention in there, the doctor does mention that's what he was doing. But the whole there should only be one, that was kind of different for
Yeah.
and how they're killing them off. But he was trying to say that because it was not all the personalities, it was only 1% personality that was killing everyone. We should not put him on death row because it's not really him that's doing it. If we can have one of the good personalities being controlled, then he's not a bad person.
Mhm. Mhm.
But see, I thought really, and this kind of, I don't know the law and everything that plays into this, but the understanding is that you couldn't do this to somebody who is not aware of what they're in for and what they've done. He is
Have you been
aware.
to Alabama? No. Kidding.
He is aware. Because they're like, okay, if you kill off other ones, you'll be able to save your life. You're aware of them. You're aware of what you're like. I felt like now I was confused because I thought not aware means I don't know they exist. I don't know that I did this. But I think he's coming. He knows that this killer lives in him. So maybe I guess they're saying he doesn't know who the killer killed or whatever. But I don't know. I felt like he was better off not doing this than saying, okay, yeah, I found him and killed him. I think he was better off being like, I don't know what y'all are talking about. I don't, like, I feel like now he's closer to, okay, now we can kill you. Like, I guess I was confused on that because the whole point is we can't kill you if you don't know you've done something wrong. Why would I be trying to draw anything out of him unless I wanted him to
He was thinking the stronger personality would be one of the nicer or the actual one that was more law abiding. I mean, pretty much all of them were supposed to be law abiding than the one that actually did all the killing. But I think when the doctor, because he did, his research on that, he talked to all the identities at some point without them knowing about each other. And I think he was really leading to the point of the John Cusack in his identity to actually be the one that would be in charge. And granted, I'm just kind of guessing on any of that, but I was thinking that that's what he was, and that's why when they go back, when they finally get to the scene where we see that all of that is in that guy's head, he's talking to the John Cusack character, and that's the one he's talking to, and that's the one he's explained it to. So that means to me that, and he also mentioned he's been talking to a therapist. Earlier, he's mentioned that because that's why he left police department or whatever. And he went to therapy, but he thinks the therapy is because whatever happened to police force. When actually the therapist you're talking to is the therapist that's trying to merge the personalities or whatever. And so I think
don't you think that making John's character aware of the murderer and what he's done now you know what you've done. Like, if
I don't think it works that way though.
But he's telling him to get rid of the bad guy.
I don't think anybody here has a psychology or psychiatry.
Yeah, and that's what this is. This is just fun.
Know how to do that? Like, how would I know who to kill off and who not to kill off unless I knew that I had these personalities? Like, I don't. Unless
he doesn't know which one to kill off. I think the doctor's assuming this one there. At first, I don't think he was really realizing they were being killed off. He was thinking maybe they were disappearing or merging. Not that, because he's not in the mindset. I don't think he realized that, hey, this guy is actually killing off the entities instead of just kind of decommissioning. Decommissioning for that is, oh yeah, you're going to be killed off and you don't exist in this guy's head anymore. I'm not sure if he meant that as in just having one as a dominant, always in control personality. And I think he was picking on the John Cusack character identity as going to be the one that's going to be the good one or the one who makes the good decisions. And he was the one that was the caretaker, and he was the one that was trying to do good and make good decisions and choosing what he thought would be a good personality and risking his, major spoiler, risking his identity life to make sure this one character the prostitute with a heart of gold is saved. And so I think he picked the right character, that John Cusack character being the one that needs to survive. But I don't think he was realizing at first they were killing each other inside that guy's head like that, until the John Cusack character comes out and is saying, we're dying here. You know, he was trying to explain what's actually happening. And that's when he's telling them, this is what's going on. One of the personalities is a murderer. You've got to do something about that personality, because, you know, at this point, y'all are all together. There's nothing he can do to separate the identities backwards. Whatever he's done to get him to the point where he can have them all in one, I guess, mindscape, then he needs to make sure if y'all are together, you are the survivor, or one of the ones who's not been murdering women is the survivor. And that John Cusack's character thought, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to say. Because out of that point, well, I think at that point, the only people who were left were him. I want to call him something besides the prostitute.
This is Red Jacket.
The Orange Grove lady.
There we go. The Orange Grove lady, because she wanted to have orange groves. It was that person, the Orange Grove lady, the bad policeman who was like a prisoner taking on the policeman's mantle. And was at that time, was the stepdad still alive or not?
No.
Okay, so was it just those three at the time?
I believe so.
A small group,
because
the hotel worker was it a hotel worker? Because I can't remember the hotel guy who took over at what point did he die? He died after
he got shot. So I think he was one of the final four. But before then, the little boy,
got shot by
policeman, disappeared off the earth, which was another thing that was like, what? So we're killing.
I forgot to say, who are all the characters? Because we were talking about characters and we never mentioned who are all the characters before we started.
Yeah.
Well, the people listening to this have seen this, so
they've seen it by now. Okay. They paused us at first and like, I got to see this, and then now they're back.
But yeah, so the little boy and the girl disappear, and let's just go ahead and say the the woman in the bad relationship who's not pregnant, she disappears, and she stays disappeared for the rest of the film with no explanation unless
I thought she exploded in the car.
No, nobodies were found.
Nobody was found in the car.
Well, I mean, I thought they were going to the car, and everybody was disappearing at that point.
Right.
They died.
But they're the only people who disappeared. It didn't make any sense. So that I thought made no sense. So right there, I'm like, so then I've decided who it is.
Oh, you thought it was one of those two?
It was.
Well, no, I mean, at that time you did.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really super suspicious. Yeah. Corey, you're awfully quiet.
So, there's a shot towards the end of this movie where we finally see the guy in the lawyer room, I guess if you want to call it, the table, the conference room. And the people are looking at him, and they're looking at him like, that's my thought.
We laughed so loud.
Of this whole, I laughed so hard because I was like, that is exactly how I feel watching this damn movie. I am confused. I'm not enjoying this anymore.
What?
This is kind of like, I don't care about any of these characters. And then you give me a twist at the end that I'm just like, just to make up some shit. Like, I'm like, no.
Good twist.
Not. That's why I'm so quiet. I'm listening to all this because Stacey is explaining it, yet it's still not helping me understand what the hell I saw and how everything really makes sense.
I don't think if you try to put it together, it's going to make total sense. I don't think
it does.
And I will say this for clarification. When I say that I guessed, what my guess was not right. The concept was, but the whole, like the mental stability issue and all that, I thought that the man they brought there was the little boy as he got older. Right. Because when that camera came out, I was like, oh, we're talking about what has happened in the past or something that happened in the past. And I thought we were going to see crimes that he committed similar to these crimes that, whatever. So I didn't know it was going to be 500 different people and it was all fake and all this stuff, like little things as we went through it. I got that.
Right.
But when we realized who the actual criminal was, I was like, oh, that must be the little boy as a grown man. That's exactly what I thought. Cause I was like, it's the little boy. I know that. And then I was like, oh, that must be him as grown. But I'm going to say, just because we're talking about the movie, I'm going to go ahead and jump and talk a little bit about the ending for a second. And what bothered me, and I mean the very end, and Corey knows in this daytime, in this time and age that we live in, if he had been a black man, do you think he would have just been put in a car with, just a little slide here and just driven on down the road with, after killing all these people or whatever? First of all, let's keep it real. None of this would have happened because he probably would have been killed before all of this, right? But I was really struck at how stupid these people were. Again, you brought him here all tied up to a wheelchair and all chained in like he's Hannibal Lecter, and then you put him in a truck because he's killed off, the identity of one of his people. Keep in mind, he still did the murder. I don't care what his mind tells him. His body committed these murders, which means his body is capable of committing more murders. Okay, another person doesn't matter. He's still a criminal. Okay, so I just was very disappointed about how he was able to get free again. I mean, he's killed all these people, managed to get away with it. Now here he is again doing the same. It was just, I don't know. It was disappointing. Corey, feel free to edit.
That was so predictable.
As you want.
Well, the doctor turns around and opens up the little gate thing.
Yes.
And he knew.
Hey.
That was not a good idea.
But Dane, I think your point about the little boy growing into that older character, I honestly thought a little bit of that too. Like, it was always in the back of my mind because the movie paints this trauma picture of like, okay, you saw this when your parent did this. You're like, they put puzzle intentional pieces to kind of set it up to be that way. So at the ending, I was like, oh, that's not, And so when I got to the very end, I was on the kind of Stacy perspective, which is the main character, the John Cusack, they gave him the mirror. They said, look at yourself. They spent, I looked at my watch, it was like 10 minutes of him going back and forth with this editing. Like, okay, I'm really not him. I'm really like another person. I was just like, where are we going with this? And I get the psychological perspective, all that, like, that's kind of my area of study. But I was just like, yo, can we do a little bit better? Like, I didn't like the ending, and I wanted, even though they put a loophole and they put a kind of twist, I wanted it to be stronger. I wanted the character, like Corey was saying, I wanted the characters to mean more, because I was like, I get that these characters are, they're made up there in his mind, but that still didn't become significant to me. I still didn't care, even after I found out that it was this other guy. They showed the pictures, they put them in front of him, and they were kind of sitting there like, okay, so I was like, I'm still not getting the significance of it. I get the twist, I get the whole like perspective of this is kind of the main character, but it didn't wrap me in. I wanted it to be a little bit stronger. Give me that and give me another big twist at the very end to wrap it all back up. But it was just like kind of lazy. I felt like in other words, y'all, I felt like the last 10 minutes was kind of lazy. Like, I don't know. That's maybe people view it differently, but that's just me. Just giving my.
Well, it was an hour and 30 minutes. I think what they could have done is gotten rid of the girlfriend and the douchebag, and focus more on the other characters and maybe their backstory. I mean, we had to have some reason for John Cusack to get there, but the actress to me also was like one of those flashing
throwaway character.
She was a throwaway character, same as those other two. If we didn't have them at all, we may be able to have gotten a little bit more in depth about the other characters. I mean, because they did do a little bit about some of like the Orange Grove lady, got her, because we hear about, where she was coming from, what she was trying to do, why was she earning the money. And we did actually learn about the motel guy, because like he just kind of picked up where somebody died. It's like, I didn't have anything and I just decided to stay. And I mean, you kind of get an idea of what kind of people they are because of that, because he was just like, dude, I'm just here. And you see that. But the other characters, you don't really, those three throwaway characters, you don't really notice anything about them. Now the family, that was just like I know the kid ends up. We know the kid ends up being the murderer. It's like, what did your mom do? I mean, I know what personality she is, but she's supposed to be. But just all of the stuff that he did to kill off everybody, and I just like that's why I don't really care much for kids. It's just they're creepy.
Yeah.
Well, especially him, and that's another reason I suspected him, because he really didn't talk and do anything, but he was there. And
Well,
it was
it's
just
also
like,
one of those weird horror movie, whatever type tropes where they just throw in the little kid. The little kid is always the one who did it. Like the little kid is always the demon, or the
standing
little
there
boy
looking,
who's
not saying.
angry or whatever.
Mhm.
So,
Like, I think, again, and I think kind of Stacey and Jeremy kind of hit on this. We as the audience don't know anything about schizophrenia other than we know it means a whole bunch of personalities. And yes, you've told us that if the personality doesn't know that they're the killer, we can't kill them. Okay, or put them to death and whatever. But aside from that, some of the back and forth and whatever y'all were doing is not clear to us because we don't understand it. And I don't feel like they did a good job of clarifying that at all.
mhm.
So all of that seemed like, and again, and I love, and this is so true, the way those men looked at him is the way your audience looked at this movie at this point.
Yep.
And so I feel like that alone tells me that you, as the person who created this movie, knew there was confusion. Because if the people in the movie don't understand it, then why would you think we do?
Exactly.
So I feel like that right there, as funny as it was, actually should have been a pivotal moment to be like, wait a minute, if they don't know, our audience doesn't know, what can we do to make this clearer and make it make sense? So that's why for me, it's like this last third part of the movie or fourth kind of just went completely downhill because it started off and I'm like into it, invested, want to know what's going on. And just like a lot of movies, you get somewhere and it feels good and you're great and you don't know how to end it. And that is what I feel like happened here. Or maybe you had too many ideas on how to end it. You decided, when somebody was like, which one do you want? You say all of them. I don't know. But I just felt like it just went.
I mean, they let you know that it's a multiple personality kind of a thing earlier. And I think if instead of when those bodies and it just disappeared like that, and they kind of gave it away that it was in his head in a way when those bodies just disappeared and all the blood and guts and all that, if I kept that in there with then have that whole thing, it made to me cause like, okay, is it really in his mind that they're personalities or is it really something that's actually going on? And I think by showing your hand, they were doing that, and they instead of I think they showed the hand to bring more clarity, or they thought would try to bring more clarity on how the whole movie is, how the movie is brought up and how that it's actually identities in his head, but they just did it the kind of a weird way. I don't think everybody caught that.
Yeah, it was almost like once the character was dead, did they even exist? And maybe that's kind of the justification for cleaning up the scene. So, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to look at all of this stuff, but I think that ultimately, if it's more aggravating to the viewer than interesting, then it didn't succeed.
Mhm.
So it's interesting. I wasn't angry by the confusion as much as I was playing along with the puzzle. And when John Cusack's character meets the when he understands the twist, that's the first twist I'm referring to. I'm thinking, is the movie over? I mean, what are they gonna do next? And I think that anytime you can do that, even if it's not super successful, for everybody, anytime you can kind of do that and go, how are they gonna wrap this up now? I think that's kind of an interesting place to be in a movie. So I was really interested in seeing how they did that, and of course, it became kind of not a who done it, but is he going to kill the person or be killed? And
I didn't care.
I
I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't.
I think it's definitely worth watching. and seeing. I
The
do.
first 2/3, at least.
Thank- what retweet what
Cusack.
Dana just said? First,
Third.
It's just not for me. It just was not the movie that I was going for once they started, moving things along. I would have preferred it to stick with the hotel scene and it be real, and there be a real killer just there, after somebody. You know what I mean? Instead of going into the psychological thing and all that. It was just too much. I
And
was
there
like,
are
I can't.
movies that have been put out that us as the audience are completely lost in, are still great. So like Inception, we all know that there are moments, if not the whole movie.
Yeah.
We're like, what? What?
Yeah, you still don't know what's going on in that movie.
It still had enough going on that you cared and you were invested enough in it to continue to watch it. And you felt like, even though you may have left not knowing what the hell just happened, you were like, that was a good movie, So it's still possible.
It was great character, a lot better character development.
And that's what I was gonna say. I didn't care about the characters in this movie at this point. So I couldn't walk away and go, I didn't really understand it, but it was good enough that I'll probably watch it again so I can understand it. I didn't care.
Right.
I didn't feel like it was worth coming back to, because I didn't feel like the answer was actually in the movie. Like in Inception, I was like, it's just that it was so deep, I have to go back and watch it again. I didn't feel like the answer was really in this movie. So there's no reason to go watch
this movie first, and they learned from the mistakes and made mistakes.
and then they made Tenet and tried
I was
to
going to say, Jeremy, I was going to say the same thing. They made Tenet.
So when they made Tenet, did they learn from their lesson? Did they learn?
Oh, they still had learning lessons. Visually, Dana, it was phenomenal. One of the best movies I've ever seen. But in the storyline, they did not learn. There were still loopholes. And
I agree.
Like Corey was saying, like it didn't interest me. Like the characters were good, and they have more character development than this movie. But what was missing was, why are you putting pieces that tie into the end of the movie and you still leave the viewers confused? I shouldn't have to watch a 20-minute YouTube review just to figure out the concepts in your movie. Like,
I'll be honest, what really messed me up was the walking forward, when they're the same thing. So you walk, I don't know. Anyway, we're talking about different movies.
Segue to Inception.
Don't go down that rabbit hole. So what was everybody's final scores of the movie?
2.5.
4.
3.5.
3.
I had a 2.
Really cool.
We've got a whole spectrum there.
I think that if we took a minute and rewrote it, some of the things that are missing from this, the deep characterization, knock off a couple of those characters out of the script entirely. I really liked where they were going with the Florida Orange Grove lady. I thought that was great and would have been a great ending, happy ending, if we cared more about her. If we knew more about her, like if we knew how that character was important to the guy, maybe there was a flashback and it's like, maybe that was, he created her from a postcard or something that he always stared at or something, who knows? Mm-hmm. But if it had more meaning where you can say, she got away, she did it, she found her dream. And then it just became like that, happy ending to Brazil version where they just go off into the sunset and everything's happy. And then it's seen, and it's done. Mm-hmm. Then when it kept going, I'm like, oh no.
I liked it because she was not the character you expected to live, right? So that's why I thought that, I was like, I agree with you. If they had just cut it, that would have been fine, because I was like, oh, well, that's refreshing. I didn't see that coming. I still don't understand everything that happened, but I like that she's the last one, standing, and then to find out she wasn't, and it was
kid all along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think some of it they didn't, I think they should have gone more into detail about how some of those personalities were forming, and think we might cared a little bit more. Because the only one they actually showed that was really kind of formed is the killer, is the kid, because it talks about, they like show clips about him being left at the hotel, and his mama never came back, and I'm not sure if she was murdered. I was trying to read all the clips of when they showed the newspaper articles after at the end of it, and how the kid was found neglected at a hotel, left alone. It's like, oh, that's where the motel thing came from, was because of that. And then maybe, and that's why, as he said, whores don't get second chances. It's because of maybe that. And just, and if we had more an idea of somehow some of those other personalities were made, which would kind of help bring it all together. I mean, obviously it's something I would think to add. But
yeah, I agree. I don't want it to be like a split or all these associative personalities. They each have their. I agree with Stacey. If they put a little bit more tweaking and a little bit more modification into like the characters and what this man is really like. I'm not saying that the psychological piece of this movie is bad, but the way it was done, it was more like focused on the murders. And like Corey was saying, maybe you just played that out throughout the whole movie and let that in. And then maybe the psychological piece could be more not even for the audience, but for the actual characters and you talking through some of those more, as opposed to just kind of squeezing it in the last 10-15 minutes, which goes back to my comment of I felt that was lazy writing. I felt that editing was just kind of put at the end, and I was like, by the time I got to that, I'm not intrigued anymore. You've done your due diligence. You could have ended it. I think one of you said that too. We could have ended it like right there, and then I would have been content, but you kept going, you dragged it on. So I don't know, the way it's done, it's not the what is the movie we got, but like how it was done was what I had the biggest issue, and is why I didn't give it a 4. I barely gave it a 3 because I was like, I don't like that. The ending really plateaued. Like it didn't do much for me because of that.
Yeah. All right. Any more further comments about Identity? No?
No. It was a good conversation.
Oh,
good.
Yeah.
I think I'm glad I saw it. I remember that coming out. I'm glad we saw it together.
Yeah.
One of the funny moments, though, I didn't mean to interrupt, Corey. One of the funny moments is when the guy was punching the wall saying like, I'm calm, and he kept punching that wall. I said, no, you're not. Like, you actually crazy. You crazy. Like you that I only laughed once during the movie, but that was the one time I laughed. I was like, he is not calm. He is actually frantic and out of control. And I know people like that. I'm like, you ain't calm. Actually, you're getting crazy. So.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Well, that was our review of Identity. We hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, put some comments down below. Tell us what you thought about the movie if you've seen it. And we will see you guys next time.